Hello and welcome back to Marketing Tip Tea Time at 222. And for Music March, once again, we have our musical guest today, Anton Riehl. Hope you enjoy. That was pretty cool.
That was pretty awesome.
So you know, we're going to introduce you in a second, Anton. All of those chords. Can you explain a little bit about, you know, what is going on with that for anybody who doesn't know?
Sure. So what I have here is two semi-modular synthesizers, a Moog Grandmother and a Buchla Music Easel Command. And basically, semi-modular synthesizers just means that you can, even though they have a default sound, you can rewire everything to sort of be the configuration that you want. So, you know, what I'm actually doing right now is I'm running the audio out over here of the Moog. It's running out into a filter on the Buchla, which is then running out into the rest of the Buchla, and then they're triggering each other back and forth. So I have this format jungler, which lets me convert between the different formats, and yeah, it's it's just your own way to reroute, to sort of take any synthesizer you want and turn it into anything new that you want it to be.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah. All right. Now for your intro, Anton. I know that was Anton Riehl, everybody. He is our guest today, not only our musical guest, but also the person we are interviewing. Anton is a classically trained composer specializing in music for film, television, and interactive media. He holds a degree in composition from the University of Northern Colorado, right here in Greeley, where we are. He's in LA now, but we're in Greeley. And he has been working professionally in Los Angeles for nearly 10 years. He's been featured performer in films and on records on a variety of instruments, including tuba, guitar, percussion, and ethnic flutes. His work has appeared on albums by Gnarls Barkley, Broken Bells, and Mike Patton. And he's also been in a lot of movies, including Crank 2, High Voltage, and Assassination of a High School President, video games including Star Wars, The Old Republic and Overgrowth, and television shows including Without a Trace and Scream Queens. And that is an outdated version of his resume.
Yeah. Sorry.
He has a lot more. That's okay. You've got a lot more stuff going on, I hear.
Yeah. That's about 10 years old. So pretty much you can double everything of credits. Yeah, and I'm currently working on a TV show on CBS called Blood and Treasure, which is kind of exciting. And I just finished a video game called Receiver 2 that came out last week. A big update came out last week. So
okay.
Yeah. So I've been.
That's awesome.
That's
fantastic.
Keep him busy, huh?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And before we dive into your questions, we're actually going to try our tea, everyone.
Yes, so Anton actually suggested this as our tea for today. It's called Thai tea. We got ours from Taiwan and Greeley.
It's very orange.
Type of boba tea.
Yeah, it's
and let's give it a try.
Yeah.
Here.
Wow. I'm getting milky grass tones again, but sweeter. Sweeter.
It's the right amount of sweet.
No, it's really good. It's like coconut and some sort of herbal tea that's pretty, at least ours is pretty planty, and then some sweetness. It just looked too complicated for us to make on camera, so we decided to go buy it from a place. Thank you for that suggestion, Anton. This is really good.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we looked up the recipe for it. We saw, 10 different ingredients?
Yeah, a long time of making it.
Go grab one,
exactly.
Yeah. Quite a bit of ingredients. So.
All right,
really
so
delicious tea.
we're going to dive in with these questions for you, and I think Josh is going to kick us off.
So let's kick it off. So your educational background. Aaron and I both went to UNC, actually, so go Bears.
Mm-hmm. Go Bears.
Had a great time there. So, yeah, go Bears. So you graduated with a degree in composition from UNC. So how was your experience there, and how did that help you with your progression into your career? How did that process that?
So I loved going to UNC. It was a lot of fun. I would say the majority of my life was spent in the music technology wing of the music building. And so I actually have three really good mentors there, one for composition, one in the recording studio. I know that you guys have met Greg Heimbecker at least once or twice.
Oh, Greg.
And then, see, and then another guy, Joseph, and he really kind of showed me technical aspects of things, soldering and computer maintenance and things like that. So I would say that the biggest things that I learned in school were the things that I sort of learned practically by doing music technology, and it really led me to understand what's going on with like the synthesizers and things like that. So some recording studio work and technical work, basically. So
wow, that's fantastic that your education really led kind of straight into what you're doing. And again, anybody out there, if you have questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll try and get to them if time permits.
There we go.
Yes. And so, you had this great education at UNC that really taught you all of these technical skills. How did that translate to Hollywood? And then how did you even kind of like break into the LA kind of scene from Greeley to LA?
Yeah, so for me, I actually, because I had all these I knew I had a lot of technical skill, so to speak. So when I moved to LA, that was my intention. So I started meeting a lot of people, which is networking is the key to working in Los Angeles. So it's who you know, how you get to know them. And then I was like, what can I offer? And I was like, well, I have all this experience with technology. So I started off by basically helping people in their studios by fixing their gear, rewiring studios, things like that, and then at the same time doing other sort of like programming MIDI, things like that. So
Wow.
Yeah, and then using that to meet people, but also what's really useful for that is the assistant job, which is kind of what that is a great way to learn the industry by watching someone else interacting. Because as much as I thought I knew about recording sessions, having worked in a recording studio for 4 years and all these other things, coming to LA, it's a very high pressure, high monetary risk that you're
Right.
When you're recording even a small string section, you're talking $10,000 an hour. You have to make that every hour count, and learning how to do that is hard without seeing someone do it. So,
and did you just say $10,000 an hour? Was that the number I heard you?
About, yeah, for that's probably
Wow.
Well, if you figure that everyone is, depending on how many people you have, maybe you can get away with $5,000, but if you're paying 20 to 30 people $100 an hour, that adds up really fast, and then we have to record, rent the studio and the engineers and everything that kind of goes along with. Yeah, I think it's a fairly safe estimate.
Wow. And I heard you mention MIDI, some MIDI stuff that you were doing. Rumblings on the street are that there's a new MIDI that's been developed coming out. Do you know about that? Do you have any?
You mean
any
the
opinions
MPE?
on it?
MPE or MIDI Standard 2?
I think it's the MIDI Standard 2 that's like something.
It's been a long time coming. I mean, MIDI is this standard for musical instruments that gets used for a lot of things. That was developed in the early 1980s, and they built it around hexadecimal code, which gives you a resolution of about 255 steps, which for an amazingly large number of things has really been it's amazing how much you can get out of MIDI with that resolution. I think MIDI 2.0 doubles it, something like that.
Wow.
And then just adds a lot of standards for modern sort of. With MIDI, the one thing that's been good is that all the competitors kind of get together and make MIDI work. So they're looking at how is technology going to work in the future. So, we're always changing what cables we connect with, right? So MIDI over USB kind of was introduced later, but it has become much more of a standard. So you can't always see the future. So MIDI as a standard is always working to be ahead of the technology, and sort of technology independent in that sense. So,
wow.
I like it.
Cool.
I like it.
I was just wondering. I was on some forum somewhere and people were buzzing about it, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" So I just thought I'd throw that question out there.
Yeah, seems like a big jump.
There's a lot of new software, like Ableton Live's latest version has introduced Mpe Support, which is the multi-polyphonic standard, and a lot of people were really excited because it adds a lot of expressive capabilities.
Okay.
So, especially if you're using like a non-standard controller, like this one that I have here is based off of the Buchla Thunder. It has multiple touch points that you could be playing. So you can be like touching a chord, and then you can slide up and down and do things, but then there's also pressure up and down, and each note could be independent and things like that, or there's like the continuum, and it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of technology, So,
Oh, that's so cool.
A lot you can do with that. Huh?
Oh my god. And speaking of all the technology, there's also lots of jobs.
Yes. And before I move on to that question, just wanted
Yes.
to highlight real quick. You mentioned how important networking was.
Oh yeah.
When you
Yeah.
first moved out to LA, Aaron and I have found that fostering deep, meaningful relationships that most importantly have a high level of trust both ways, that's what's helped us the most in business.
Yeah.
Is just forming a good network and yeah, just building good relationships with people. That's really gone a long way. So
Am I slurping a
that's-
lot into the microphone? I feel like I'm
Just get a good slurp going. But
Right.
That's really helped us out. So that really stood out to me when you mentioned that and how much it helped you when you first moved out there and got your career going. So yeah, I just thought that was really
agree.
cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
So moving on, different kinds of jobs. So what are some of the different jobs involved in film scoring, in video game scoring? Also really cool that your work was in a Star Wars game. I grew up playing Battlefront 2, a lot of the Star Wars games. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did the Old Republic was the MMO, was the one that my stuff is in. So there's a lot of jobs around what needs to happen. So if you're going to think about the writing process, there's typically an actual, a composer, and then they will typically have assistants that will do things like tech work. They will, get food, whatever they need to do to make things work. But people that assist them, then you'll need arrangers and or orchestrators. You'll need part copying for live performances. Obviously, there's actual players that may need to be hired. Recording, mixing, editing, mixing, mastering, all of that is sort of the music production side. And then on film and TV, you may have a music editor, which is a job I'm doing right now on a TV show, which is basically this music has already been written, and maybe they go and they change the edit of the movie or TV show. You have to take the music that you have, and without re-recording it, you have to edit it to fit the new lengths of material. So that's sort of music editor jobs. And then in video games, there's the coding, but there is music coding. There's a lot of plug-in types of things where you can dynamically create and adjust and mix music in real time in a video game. So learning how to write code can be really important for implementing things, and sound design kind of falls in that same category too. Learning how to record and create sounds that are sound effects, and how do you place them against the movie or the video game. It kind of all overlaps a little bit. So
Wow.
lots of detail-oriented jobs. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
I believe you know Connor Shaw because he says that you are the best and that you taught him how to use analog synths. So
Yeah, I met Connor briefly, and he came over and we played around with the Buchla, and he seemed pretty excited about that. So
yeah.
Yeah, the big difference between the analog synths versus MIDI, as we were talking about, is how you control the sounds. So with MIDI, it's digital signals, it's numbers that then get translated. With analog gear, it's literally a voltage that you can turn up and down. So if I turn up a knob, I'm sending a signal, like a voltage that will adjust things, and it's a continuous analog signal. And each one sort of has a different range. So this one goes from like 0 to 15 volts. I have the Euro rack in the back, and that goes from 0 to 10 volts, and then that translates to everything we talked about before. So electricity.
So if there's maybe something for us to know, it's that this kind of a job is highly technical. Very highly technical.
Certainly currently, if you want to do everything yourself, then yes. There are musicians who come in and they are, I'm a musician and I do the music. But if you're going to come in without those technical skills, you're going to have to hire the people to do the technical side along with you.
Right. My gosh. And speaking of that, I see all of the tools that you have. It's kind of laid out in front of you. But are there any pieces of software or hardware that you have to have? And then also, how easy is it to do this job remotely?
Okay. So video games remotely are super easy most of the time. Everything is easy until remote work is always easy until it's not. So it is nice to get together with a director and talk in person. It's nice to you have to get together with musicians if you're going to record them, especially like an orchestra. You need to be somewhere where you can get to that. Most of my work is done alone by myself, and then I kind of get together with people for demonstrations and things like that. So, So, yes, and there was another part to this.
Yeah, it was software and hardware that somebody wanting to go into like your line of work has to have.
So the industry standard for software is going to be for film and TV is you're going to have to deliver in Pro Tools, which is by Avid. So that's still like what you're going to find in the recording studios. That's what you're going to find on the dub stage, which is the sort of final step in a film or TV. So that's that last stage. But I personally like to have a lot of different applications available to me. So any DAW will work. Ableton Live or Cubase or Bitwig, or I use Digital Performer a lot still, and just on and on. If you're going to be doing notation for players, it's really good to have some kind of notation software. So Sibelius or Finale are kind of the two dying notation software, and Dorico is the one that you should get it if you don't know it already.
I've been looking at it. Dorico's been kind of luring me, so I've been watching Peter in the office use it.
Yeah, once you switch over to Dorico, it's really hard to go back. I pulled up a Finale file 2 years ago, and I had such a hard time doing anything. I haven't opened it in 2 years. So,
no.
Like it's almost just as fast for me to recreate a new score in Dorico from scratch than it would be to try and like pull something over from Finale. So
Wow.
And then there are tons and tons of virtual instruments that are great to learn. The analog synths that I have are kind of a plus. It's something fun, but not something that's really mandatory. So there are virtual versions of almost everything that I have here. If modular synthesis is something that interests you, there's an amazing free program called VCV Rack, and it's really great. It's an actual modular synthesizer on your computer with thousands of modules. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Aaron's definitely more savvy with this than I am. A lot of that.
I know I could run away on this tech stuff for a while. Yeah.
Aaron's got much more of a music background than I do.
Sure.
So, question on our final question. It's on project management. So, For the projects we manage, they can be somewhat complex, but sometimes maybe pretty straightforward. We use Asana for our project management. That's really kind of the backbone of how we project manage. How do you project manage your projects?
So for film and TV, for a long time, people were just using spreadsheets, and it never really worked. But ticketing software like Asana doesn't necessarily work very well for film and TV either. So I've been making my team switch over to this tool called QDB or Q database, qdb.com. And what it does is it gives you a spreadsheet style feeling for every piece of music that you need to write for any given film or television. And then similarly, like basically each one of you could think of each one of those as a ticket, and then you have status updates and note taking and versioning on each one of those queues, which ticketing could work, but most ticketing software kind of doesn't fit the needs. So QDB is really the only project management tool right now that's sort of online and collaborative and helps with remote work and things like that. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
And it's free. It's free to get started. What's that? Yeah,
I didn't know that existed. You're telling us a lot of things I didn't know about. So usually I have some sort of like, I've heard of that, but my face is like, what? All the time. You're doing, we call it spilling the secret sauce here on Zova, and that's what you're doing. You're just taking all your secret sauce, and Connor is telling Josh to don't be so humble, Josh, about your musical skills. I'm going to actually ask one last quick question. I'm going to throw it in there because I think we have just a bit of time, and that is your job as glamorous as everybody imagines?
It is a full-time job. It is. There is no glamour involved. It's a job. I mean, it's a job I enjoy, and there are obviously moments that are more exciting. But I watched the rover land on the moon, and I'm like, man, that must be, a glamorous job to be a programmer at NASA. You see a successful ad campaign. Oh, it must be great to be on that campaign, but those people
right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of work. You know what I mean? So
yep.
I'm not sure. Yeah, glamour is I think glamorous jobs are a fabrication of romanticizing aesthetics.
Right.
Happens.
I think so too. Recently, just quick about Zova, we got into some larger entertainment companies in LA that we're working with some talent. Some are in Marvel movies, things like that, and it's work to be an actor. I didn't realize until we were working with their production schedules and their set schedules. I mean, they're on set sometimes 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. in a single day with 5-minute breaks. So
long days.
And everybody thinks maybe that's the most glamorous job.
Right.
Turns out maybe not.
Well, and the time that they're not filming, they are spending full time going to auditions and to casting calls and working on their craft. How do you learn a million different dialects? How do you, there's so much backstory,
exactly.
And also, the actors, the time that most people see the actors is when a movie comes out, right? That's they go and they do the sort of interview circuit, so to speak, and the advertising.
Right.
That's work for them. They have to get out and do it, and they're like, I filmed this movie a year ago, and now I have to answer questions as if it happened yesterday, like I'm seeing this movie for the first time. So, there's
yep, exactly.
Well,
sorry if I ruined it for you.
No, I figured as much. Well, that is actually all of our questions for today and all the time we have. Thank you everyone who has joined us today and who will be watching this later. A lot of people are at work and watch it later. For a marketing tip tea time at 2:22 with Anton Riehl. Thank you, Anton, for being our musical guest and our interviewee today, and for having this awesome tea. That's
pretty awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Until next time. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Nastravi.
Cheers.